Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast blending soul and science-based strategies to empower pandemic moms like you, raising kindergarten-ready kids. I'm Cara Tyrrell, your host, a lifetime lover of littles, girl mom, early childhood educator, and conscious parenting coach who truly believes that how we connect and collaborate with our kids in the first 5 years is how we raise world-ready kids who will change this world. Today, I cannot wait to share with you my friend Lee Friedman, the founder of Mango Tree Travel. And she's a really special human, you guys. You're going to love her. She's a mom of 2 littles, 5 and under, and a lawyer turned entrepreneur who started a travel company to help busy moms like you get to the Caribbean, bring your kids, not have to worry about all the details, and have fun with your family while you're there. In this episode, she's going to tell us how she did it, why she made the shift, and she drops some seriously real tips for how to travel with kids, including the big P, packing. Stay tuned for this episode. You're not going to want to miss it, so you can make some core memories with your kids and have fun while they're still little. But before we dive in, I would love if you could do me a favor. Could you scroll on down, rate the show after you listen, and leave a review, ask a question, suggest a topic. This will help me know how to better serve you, who to bring in. It will also help friends find us, other moms who need to be hearing what we're talking about together. Lee, thank you so much for being here. I know our listeners are already just like, tell us everything based on the bio alone. But I'd love to start with you, who you are. This idea that you went from lawyer to entrepreneur. So that's kind of a large shift in and of itself, and did it with 2 kids under 5. Tell us more.
Sure. Thanks so much, Cara, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I think this will be a great episode, and I'm so excited to talk to you about all of this, given that I've spent the last year thinking about almost nothing but traveling with kids under 5 and being a mom of 2 kids under 5. And I know that's really where your specialty lies. So I'm excited. Yeah, I am a mom of 2 kids. In 2 months, I won't be able to say anymore that I have 2 kids under 5 because my 5-year-old is about to turn 6. So I'm like starting to edge into the next phase of parenthood. But I have an almost 2-year-old and an almost 6-year-old. I am still a practicing lawyer, also have my own business, as you know, and still have 2 small kids. So I think I am a little bit of a basket case half the time, which I think is really normal for parents in our position. I hate to introduce myself as a basket case, but that's the reality, right?
It's totally relatable, though.
It just is what it is. But I was a lawyer for 15 years, and I increasingly spent more and more of my time thinking about travel and thinking about the importance to me of traveling with my kids as they started to grow. And I had some pretty amazing memories traveling with my daughter when she was an only child. And when I started thinking about travel with my son when he was born during COVID, I started to hit a lot of different roadblocks in the travel planning process. And for years, people had asked me, if you could be anything other than a lawyer, what would you be? And I would say travel agent. And people sort of laughed because you've achieved this great thing in your career as a lawyer and you want to be something maybe even a little less glamorous or totally different. But I sort of meant it. I never really was joking when I said it. Now I've seemed to have found a way to do a little bit of both and to work travel into my professional life with my kids. Yeah, I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm sort of in it. Like I'm in the grind with the kids and the job and all the things, but it's been a crazy journey.
That's amazing. Can we just for a moment, so this show talks to toddler moms, right?
Okay, yeah.
Toddler moms had babies during the pandemic, and you relate to that. You just told us that was your experience. And we're going to sit here today and talk about traveling with them. It seems like a counterintuitive thought process, but you have made it accessible. You've made it easy. You've made it fun. Tell us why it's so important to you to empower other parents to get back out into the world post-COVID and start making memories?
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about this in a while until you and I were talking about the COVID impact on families and travel, which is those first few months of COVID. I know everybody kind of went into their own deep, dark hole and tried to figure out what they could do to make life manageable in this sort of crazy thing we were all dealing with. I started to book like beach houses and cabins in secluded wilderness, like compulsively. If you had looked at my Airbnb sort of booking, I had like 20 of them booked for like every different week in case we got COVID or something changed, or maybe this would be the week we could get away. And even in those moments where we weren't allowed to travel, I found ways to travel, which I think does sort of shed light on where my perspective on this. I've always wanted to travel with my kids. And I've also always wanted to be a parent that got out of the house with my kids. And that was for me with my daughter, how I survived parenthood in these early toddler years was making a point to go do things I enjoyed and finding ways to bring my toddler along. And that was much harder for all of us, or we couldn't do it for years. And I think it's easy for easy is not the right word, but it happens for a lot of parents that we fell into these routines of not doing those things. Even though we had ideas of the types of parents we wanted to be pre-COVID. And I want to encourage parents to sort of go back to those times pre-COVID and think about how you might have thought your parenting journey would go and whether you've started to make choices along the way that have taken you farther away from that for completely understandable reasons. But now is a great time to course correct and start to think more about getting out of the house, traveling, being more flexible, because those things benefit us and our kids, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I love this concept that you're bringing to us of intentionality around it. One of the things that moms specifically who are in it every day during those early years find is, okay, what are we going to do today? Like, how am I going to entertain the kids? And I know when you and I chatted, it was a bit of a reframe. Like, instead of entertaining, how can we engage? What experience can we create so we're both in it, we're both enjoying it, and those core memories are being planted?
Yeah, that's right. And I believe too, that first year with a baby is sort of different because the babies go where you go and you don't yet have this need to provide some sort of like entertainment or kid-focused activity. But even if you get in the habit of taking a baby to a place that all of this is a practiced art, right? Like I like breweries. I think breweries are actually one of the best sort of activities you can do near home with kids that put them in sort of this travel type experience where they're out of the house, they're in a new dynamic, there's lots of different people around, but there's often grass for them to run around, big hills. You can be in a social situation with adults that is adult focused and make it kid friendly. And that I think is something that kids get used to the more and more they do it. And if you expect your child to be able to sit still at a picnic table and play with stickers or do a coloring book, you have to let them practice doing it. And that I think is being intentional about that and knowing that it's not going to go that well the first few times because they don't know how to do it yet is okay, right?
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And knowing that you are getting something out of it too. I'll tell you. So the other thing that tends to be a bit of a truth about moms who are overwhelmed during the first few years with littles is that in order to counteract our overwhelm, we do a lot of organizing, planning, scheduling, controlling.
Like so much.
And so the idea of traveling with our kids is the exact opposite of that. It requires letting go, some flexibility, some being ready for the unplanned and unexpected to show up. And I mean, I'm 100% guilty. We didn't go to Disney until our kids were 8 and 10 because I thought it would be more manageable. They would remember everything, right? I did all that mama brain stuff. Yeah. They remember very little. And I came home needing a vacation from my vacation.
Yep.
How do you make it so that you are in that vacation with your little kids? I mean, you told me you've been to the Caribbean. Tell people this thing about you. They're going to have to pause and take a breath.
This year, I've been to 8 Caribbean countries with a child. I had at least one child along for 7 of them. I took one solo trip. It's kind of amazing, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But I took 7 trips with my kids and there were tough moments. But like I said, it's a practiced art, right? So by the 6th or 7th trip, and I know not everybody has the luxury of taking 7 trips with their small kids in the same year, but even stepping back from before I started this company, I was prioritizing having a couple of big trips a year with my family and then some weekends here or there. So get into a habit where travel doesn't seem as overwhelming because you've done it more and your kids are used to it. Like I now really noticed this last trip with my toddler, he knew what to do at the airport. And sometimes we don't give small kids credit for learning these bigger skills that we learn as adults. But think about how quickly your toddler learns colors once they start learning colors, or how quickly your toddler understands if I do X, you will do X. That can apply just as well, to bigger things like travel and the logistics that make it so hard. And so I think if you are a parent who has goals of traveling with your kids, I think you're absolutely right, Cara, that like you fall into this habit of thinking, well, I'll start someday. I'll start when they're a little older. I'll wait until it's a little bit more manageable. Once we get through, age 2 to 4, it'll all get easier. But in those years, you haven't traveled, right? It's not, oh, you haven't given your kids this experience yet that they might not remember, but you as a person have now missed out on 2 to 5 years or however many years of travel that you might have wanted to have. I'm not saying you specifically, but that you might have wanted to have with your kids. And if you start early and start small, you might be able to look back and say, some of those trips were disasters. Some of those trips were amazing. And I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah.
But I was out with a girlfriend yesterday, one of the moms I travel with. I have a good group of moms that are very like-minded about trying to prioritize travel and getting out of the house with our kids and taking some of these risks as parents that are sometimes uncomfortable, but that, you benefit from. And she actually really raised the point of if you want children to be flexible on the road when you're traveling, start at home, start small. Start with skipping a nap on a weekend day, intentionally, as you said, to see how it goes and see if it's as bad as you feared it was going to be, right? Start by going to not even an amusement park, a fair, something where they're totally out of their own comfort zone. And again, see what little things work to help them adjust. And the more you practice being flexible with your kids at home, the more likely they'll be okay and adaptable when you're on that bigger vacation where there's pressure to have fun. And that's like another thing we should talk about a little bit too, is that sort of pressure. There's so much pressure on a big trip that you've spent a lot of money and time planning for every day to go well that you don't have in your day-to-day necessarily at home. But if you practice in the less sort of pressured situation, it sort of maximizes the chances of going well later.
That is such an important point, that we need to set ourselves up, not just our kids, but ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I want to pull something out of that you just touched on, which is that we were people before we were parents.
Yeah.
We don't lose who we are just because we added mama to our name list of names that we answer to. I'd really love to hear from you. Your thoughts on, owning that pre-parent self while embracing our new role.
Yeah, that actually was when I decided to start this travel company. One of the sort of key moments that launched me into that was one conversation I was having with this group of moms that I talked to about all of these different things. And we were talking about planning a trip. And there were 2 sort of points of contention that were really bothering us. One was just the logistics of finding the right hotel for kids, which is one point we're trying to solve for here. The other was the type of hotels that we felt the internet was telling us we were expected to go to as parents. And it was the Nickelodeon Resort in Punta Cana, and it was the all-inclusive hotel that welcomes kids. And we were all expressing a little bit of frustration that just because we're parents doesn't mean we suddenly want to travel a totally different way. And when the world is telling us we have to, it creates even more stress that, well, are we not allowed anymore to go to the types of places that we liked to go to pre-kids? In my experience, planning a trip, and it can be not just a trip, but a daytime outing, right? That I am excited about, makes me more well-positioned to enjoy the time with my kids because it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It doesn't feel like I'm spending 10 grand to go to like an all-inclusive resort that I never wanted to go to in the first place, to sit on like an uncomfortable chair and watch my kids go down water slides for 10 hours, right? Now, some parents might love that, and like no judgment there. I don't. I still want to travel to unique boutique hotels that have a sense of character, because then I get excited about the trip and I get excited to share with my kids parts of travel that I love. And all of that reinforces itself. And I think that is true. And I know you know this with being a mom of a young kid and all aspects of life as a new parent, that if we find ways to share the things we love with our kids, that we all come out ahead, and it's not just about them. It can also be about us. I don't know.
So
that's what I think, and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you're touching on the uniqueness, and that is a huge core here at Core 4 Parenting. Is who we were before kids was a unique human being. We married or partnered with another unique human being that's not us. And we created another life who is also not us.
That's right.
All get to have our uniqueness, but we have to coexist in the same spaces. And so just like think about music, right? If we love R&B and that's all we ever play in our house, our kids' entire formative years, that's what they're going to hear. They'll be like, oh, this is what we listen to, full stop. But if we open the doors to all the different genres of music and styles and sounds, even if they're not 100% appealing to us, we've given them a smorgasbord of opportunities to tap into and say, oh, this really appeals to me.
You know, and that's such a great point that I maybe don't articulate as often as I could, but that I live when I travel, which is, you know, okay, so I like to pick a location or a destination or a hotel that I get excited about for me. But I also want to make sure my kids are going to have fun there and that they're going to have a good experience. And when I plan trips, like the actual activities during the day, there's always a mix. There is always at least one activity or thing that I think is really going to be about something my kids will love, because that's part of parenting too, right? We want to show them things they'll get excited about. And then I try to factor in something I get excited about. And usually, often, those things align. Like I am just as excited to take my daughter snorkeling as she is to see the fish, right? But she might not have had a great experience at the fancier restaurant overlooking the ocean when there is like a more casual beach shack with lawn games next door. And I might get just as much out of that experience where my child can have a good time. And I think you're right, finding a way where we can all coexist in the right places that have something to offer everybody, or where your activities during the day have a variety of things where everybody in the family gets a little something out of that day.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Hey, Cara here, just popping in to ask you a quick question. Are you dealing with meltdowns? Of course you are. You're a toddler mom. What if there was a tool that could help you manage your own emotions and triggers better, so you can help your child return to center faster inside the meltdown moment? I am so excited to share my free guide with you. I've even recorded audio files, 5 mindful mantras for conscious moms managing toddler meltdowns. Grab it today with the link in the show notes. Then download the audios and manage meltdowns consciously. And now I'll bring you back to the rest of the episode. When my girls were little, they're grown now, but when they were little, we used to go to Cape Cod every summer. And my parents had a house there, and boy, were we blessed. And did I learn so much when my girls were 1 and 3, when they were 2 and 4, when they were 3 and 5, about what felt comfortable to them. And it turned out, you know, that I have an adult child who still has a lot of social anxiety when there's too many people around. And I learned that in large part on the days we went to the beach. It was hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Right. And so these are the unpredictable things that can pop up, and we just have to be ready. But you have a really cool service, because you take that desire that we have to feel confident, organized, in control, and know we have a plan, and you make one for us.
Yes. And that's what I want to do here, right? Is I I want parents to feel inspired and confident is really a great word choice, I think, in traveling. And some parents want to do that themselves and they want to plan it. Some parents want to do that themselves and plan it, but can't possibly find the time for reasons I completely understand. And you start to think about what you could ask for help as a mom. And what an easy thing to say, I need to get away. I don't have time to plan it in a way where I can feel confident that I'm going to a place that fits my travel needs and my child's travel needs. I can offer that. And so I'm kind of sort of come at all my travel planning with a unique focus, I think, on finding authentic, unique travel experiences in the Caribbean, whether it's an eco cottage, if that was sort of what you were into before kids, or a high-end luxury private island experience. There's a whole range. And what I love the most is when a parent comes to me and says, I want blue water for miles. I need a great infinity pool for my kid. My child loves animals, and I want to make sure there's some animal encounters, and a comfortable bed is really important to me, or whatever, right? Like, give me your four things, and the wheels start turning in my head of like which island might be the right fit for you, which hotel might be the right fit for you, which activities you might have access to, and I love it. And it's just such a nice way. It feels so good to be able to help other parents look forward to a trip with their kids because they know someone has helped them plan it with that in mind, of that enjoyment for everyone in the family.
And it brings you such joy.
It does. I get really excited.
I can see it. If you guys can see her face right now, she's lit up, almost blushing.
I'm planning a trip right now for a family who, and I think it's like fits right into your company and what you do, Cara, is that they have a 3-year-old and the mom is pregnant. So they're about to have their second baby. So their first baby was a COVID baby, early COVID baby. Their second baby is about to be born. They called it their return to travel. And they want to go spend 2 weeks or 3 weeks on their maternity leave somewhere in the Caribbean because they love the Caribbean. They love the beach. And the mom gave me one very specific request, which was, I need 0 barriers between me and the water because I'm going to be stuck in a room breastfeeding my baby. If I have to go down an elevator to get to the beach, I'll never leave the room. And I thought that was such a great way of capturing like the challenge of traveling with a new baby. And that was all she gave me. And I was like so excited to find like the right place for this family that is so excited to have some time to connect away from their home and to be able to be the one that finds them the right place to do that. Like I just got really excited to do it. Also, I guess I'm in the right business.
You are. You're in the right place. So
I also love what you said, though. Sorry to interrupt you about your kids, learning about your kids at that young age. We've learned that my daughter gets very nervous being told to go like do something by herself when there's strangers around. So we travel so much with her. We'll say, Jane, why don't you walk up to the bar and order a smoothie? And she really it's like she freezes in place. It's like clearly this is something that really bothers her. But we're learning through our trips sort of like how to create situations where she can be better about like going and asking for something in a situation she's not as familiar with. And I'm not sure I would have noticed that about her as much if we weren't out of our own house doing these experiences.
Getting out of our own comfort zones is how we grow and how we learn. And as adults, as becoming a mother is basically the biggest get out of your comfort zone you can possibly do. And then we just keep going. But it's often hard for us to reverse engineer that back to, well, what if we start thinking about it for our kids when they're little? What if we observe the opportunities to push them just slightly outside of that zone to give them an opportunity to learn something that doesn't come as naturally to them? And it's really fun.
It is really fun.
Really fun because you're literally watching them grow. So I kind of want to finish this conversation by pulling back to what you said midstream, which was we need to go into the travel experience itself with a mindset that has, I'm going to add words here, you tell me if they're accurate, where a reasonable and achievable expectation mindset.
I think that's right.
It's not always going to be the big smiles and giggles and belly laughs.
No, but as you just said, some of it is a teaching moment too, and a parenting moment, and finding a trip with the right mix is wonderful. And you're going to have bad days traveling with small kids the same way you have bad days at home with small kids, but you'll still find the hours of joy in those days that you would in your normal vacations, right? Like it's still worth it because you might end that bad day with one of the most beautiful sunsets you've ever seen. And that's what you'll remember, right? And you'll also remember that time you taught your child how to navigate this new situation that you can then say, this gave my child something too, not just the sunset they won't remember, because of course it's true. They won't remember a lot of these details. But like you said, you're raising people and putting these young people in those formative experiences that can only do great things for us. It's going to be wonderful no matter what, whether they remember it or not.
Absolutely. Those foundational memories are in there, whether or not they're pulled to the front.
Yeah, that's right. But I think that releasing that pressure to have the perfect vacation is something I struggled with for a long time. You go on, when you were an adult, you had much more control over how your trip was going to go. And you could reset at any moment and you could pivot very quickly. And with kids, there are just going to be some harder moments along the way because, like you said, you're coexisting, you're managing another unique personality that's there in the mix. But we know how to do that as parents, right? We do it every day. You can do it on the road just the same way you do it at home.
So we've talked about why it's amazing to travel with our small kids, how it creates that cohesive family experience, how to troubleshoot some of these things along the way. Can we talk about the big P, which is packing?
Yeah, sure. How do you do it?
How? Right, if you're going out for the day, you've got a diaper bag, and then the diaper bag has a diaper bag, and you've got the stroller, and you've got. How do you make it so that in itself doesn't overwhelm you?
Find a packing list. I've been meaning to create one actually for like beach travel packing with small kids. Maybe this will motivate me to do it. I'll give you my two very small but very important tips that helped me get through packing with all the baby gear and the toddler gear, which is I have the Baby Bjorn travel crib, which I love, and it comes in its own case. And I shove all my kids' clothes down the side. So that becomes the baby suitcase and it doesn't take up space in my own suitcase. There's like all sorts of extra room on the sides and all of like the sheets, the sleep sacks, and all of his clothes go in that bag and I'm done with it. I use a lot of packing cubes. I think packing cubes are like the most necessary when traveling with kids. And my other best tip has been to use a big car seat bag because you can put other things in the car seat bag. You don't have to just put your car seat in it. So I put all my diapers, all my wipes, all of the random beach toys, like anything that I need that's just like a random loose kid item. I fill up some packing cubes with those and I shove them in with the car seat. And then that's a free bag to check. So I used to try to really focus on minimizing how much I packed and packing light. I was like, I could pack light I can pack light with kids. I can just travel in it. And then the more I travel with kids that age, the more it's like, this is this brief period in your life where you're just going to take a lot of stuff with you. Like, just be fine with that. Just understand that you're going to take a lot of stuff with you and find the right suitcases and containers to put it in so that you don't go crazy. Those are my biggest sort of tips. The car seat bag, packing in the Baby Bjorn crib. Yeah, those are my two best. I don't have a great answer for you as to how not to let it get overwhelming other than just to do it. Just do it and then it'll be fine. It's like packing for yourself.
That if I could go back in time now, I feel empowered to do it well and confidently. Yeah. You guys, did you hear that?
Just do it.
Do it. Just do it.
You're going to forget 10 things and then it's fine. Everywhere you go has babies, right? Like you will be able to find diapers. Like you will be able to find that thing that you forgot. And if you can't, it probably wasn't that important to begin with.
Okay, so quick follow-up question here. What about gear? Is that something that when you're planning for families, you contact the hotels and find out if they have the right gear?
Yes, I can do that, definitely. I don't know if anyone's heard of Baby Quip, which is a gear rental company where it usually is when you get there, you can rent some gear. And I'm talking with a couple of other different companies that rent gear on the front end. So maybe you don't have the right stroller that someone would recommend for travel. Like I have a stroller that I love for travel. It's called the Pocket. It folds down and it goes in the overhead bin. So you don't actually have to check it. But maybe you don't have that stroller and you want just one trip, a company that will help rent you that gear ahead of time so that you could have some much more travel-friendly gear before you go on your trip. So I'm working on that.
So from the beginning of this conversation, the stress level, I can just feel it for someone saying, here's what I want to do, but I have no idea where to start or how to make it happen. The stress level has gone down at least 5 notches.
I hope so. Sometimes I talk so fast, I worry that I'm going to stress parents out with my enthusiasm for this stuff. That's not the goal.
Enthusiasm is contagious.
Yeah.
No, I love it. I love
I
it.
think that's the biggest takeaway, right? Is that you can do it. Like all of these little points of overwhelm, like just start doing it and they will come into focus and it will be okay. The way everything with parenting has been, right? Is that it's always okay once you just start to do it.
And mamas, if you hear nothing else, hear permission to ask for help.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you don't have to do this alone, it is your family's experience and that you will get to experience by yourself. But please ask for help if it's something that's going to take the stress level down and get you back into the world.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And, there's this hesitancy sometimes to hand over travel planning because it's part of the fun, right? It used to be part of the fun, like looking forward to where you were going to go. You can still do that. If someone else is figuring out the logistics of literally how you're going to get to that hotel on the beach, that doesn't stop you from looking at photos of that hotel on the beach every time you have a coffee break and getting excited about the dinner you're going to go to or the activity you're going to see. You just have taken away the stress of having to be the one to make every decision and every organizational choice along the way.
By the time this episode airs, what I'm about to say will be retroactively true, but I personally do not find travel planning fun. I do find it stressful. And I'm presenting at a conference in December in Dallas, Texas, and I live in Vermont. And do you know how many times I've been on the website to try to find a ticket and book the ticket and backed out of booking it and gone back and done it? I have wasted so much my time trying to understand the logistics of airfare.
And you don't have that time to waste. That's just not moms. We don't have that time. Like we just don't.
Yeah. So it will eventually get booked. But yeah, it's something that if it was a streamlinable situation, boy, would that feel so good.
Yeah.
I will tell everybody who loves the Caribbean, loves their kids, and loves vacationing how they can get a hold of
that's everybody. Sure.
And how they can work with you.
Yeah. So my website is mangotreetravel.com. There's a contact form on there. There's hotel recommendations. There's all sorts of travel tips you can find. I'm also on Instagram at Mango Tree Travel and Facebook, Mango Tree Family Travel. I'm starting on TikTok. Don't go there yet. I'm not ready for you. But maybe by the time this episode airs, I'll be a TikTok star too. But the website is really sort of our pride and joy. So I hope that your listeners, I hope you guys check it out. And hopefully it'll inspire a Caribbean trip.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking some time to share your passion with us today. We're really grateful. And personally, I can't wait to hear from listeners who write back and say, I did it. I went on the trip and it was amazing.
Me too. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Wow. That episode with Lee was amazing. And she left us with a ton of takeaways for getting back into the world and traveling with our kids post-pandemic. But here are just a few of those nuggets of wisdom. Takeaway 1, make sure that you do something you enjoy too. You can be in a social situation with adults that is adult-focused and make it kid-friendly. Takeaway 2, be intentional and know it's not going to go well the first few times. It's a practice, and you have to let your kids practice doing it. Takeaway 3, flexibility is part of the process. Practice being flexible with your kids at home, and it's more likely they'll be okay and adaptable when you're on the bigger vacation. Takeaway 4, find a way that you can all coexist in the right place that has something to offer everybody in your family. Takeaway 5, you will have bad days traveling with small kids the same way you have bad days at home with small kids, but it will still be worth it. You'll find the joy because maybe that day will end with one of the most beautiful sunsets you've ever seen. And takeaway 6, packing. Just understand you're going to take a lot of stuff with you. Find the right suitcases and containers to put it in so you don't go crazy. Would you like to transform your triggers? Join me for a free workshop called exactly that, Transforming Your Triggers, 6 simple steps for hijacking reactions and crafting intentional responses. You will leave this 60-minute free workshop with actionable strategies and script starters to help you stop that knee-jerk reaction and truly engage with your child inside a challenging moment. Register with the link in the show notes, and I cannot wait to see you there. Thank you, Mama, for making time for yourself and prioritizing your parenting, listening to this podcast. Until the next episode, stay mindful and proactive as you transform the toddler years.